The government and the press are said to be two strange bedmates. The government cannot perform their duties effectively without the press. Likewise, the press cannot, do certain things without the interference of the government, positively or in some sort of way. On this segment today, our focus would be on the rights and privileges of the Nigerian journalist. Yes, we will be taking it from a holistic point of view, but then touching down straight to the Nigerian journalist. We've been talking about what the media is not doing for the public, but then what are those things that the journalists themselves are being deprived of? My guest is Clem Aguyi. He is the CEO, African Free Press. You're welcome.
Thank you, Eunice, for having your program.
It's a pleasure to have you here again.
My pleasure.
Yeah, let's take off on this note. So what are the rights of the Nigerian journalists?
The rights of Nigerian journalists is not different from the rights of journalists across the world. Basically, the rights of journalists are the rights to freedom of information, the right to self-expression without subordination to even their employer or to the government of the day, and the right to criticize policies, issues. These are the rights of journalists across the world, and these are also the rights of journalists in Nigeria. Even the Nigerian Constitution, Section 39(1), recognizes the rights of journalists, the rights of citizens, because these rights of journalists, like I explained to you, is not different from the public rights of citizens. Number one, every citizen of Nigeria has a right to information of what is going on in government, what is going on around him or her, have the absolute right of his existence. And he also have right of expression to even own a broadcast media, be it the print, be it online, be it the television.
As long as you have the capability
as long as you have the capability. Be it the public square, to express yourself. These are platforms. And you also have right to criticize issues, policies that you don't like or you don't believe in, or to support what you believe in. Okay. These are rights of citizens of Nigeria. Yes. And this is also contained in Section 39 of the Nigerian Constitution. The Constitution of Nigeria recognizes the rights of citizens to have freedom to information, right to self-expression, right to criticize. And this is also the rights of journalists.
Okay. The answer to my next question seems to be like it's an obvious one, but maybe from a professional point of view, you'll be able to break it down. When can these rights be said to be infringed upon?
Yeah, the rights can be infringed upon like every other right. Most of these rights are not absolute. For example, the journalist's right to practice and get full information and publish is also based on responsibility, in the sense that before you can publish, you also be sure that what you publish is correct. And in expressing yourself as a journalist, you have to be sure that the expression that you're making is one that the source are credible, and it's also something that you can defend. It's not just an absolute right, actually, because you find that same constitution that gave right to freedom of information, freedom of expression, freedom to criticize, also provided for defamation, provided for sedition,
Official Secret Acts and the like.
Provided for Official Secret Acts.
Okay.
And this is about to even provide for monitoring of social media.
Do you see that feasible? Well, social media, broad as it is, do you think it can be monitored and regulated?
That human beings could think about it, make it possible. There are some countries that have tried and attempting to do that, or have done that already. And you find that in every country where the government actually is still opaque in the oppression, they don't want citizens to know what is going on in government. Unfortunately, the same government will depend on the media to dish out their information to the public. The same government doesn't want the people to know the other things about the government. And that is where the media comes in, because the media must publish the truth. They have that as a duty to the public. It doesn't matter the consequence to even your person. And that is how wide the right of a journalist is. He must publish the truth. He must not even taint the truth. He must not even try to mask it, obscure it, to make it a bad news look good or a good news look bad.
Even if it poses threat to his or her life?
That's professionalism. Every profession has their own hazards. A journalist should be bold and courageous to say the truth, so long as you know you're saying the truth. Sometimes you get hurt. Sometimes you get an award for that. But you have to do your job professionally.
Okay, this would bring me to the next question. How protected are the rights of the journalist? Because you just said something that you should be able to say the truth no matter what. But then there are cases where the journalist thinks about his take-home pay, thinks about the work condition and some of the things that are not in place welfare-wise. And so he or she might not be encouraged to do that job. So how protected is the Nigerian journalist, and how well regulated are those rights?
Well, the rights of Nigerian journalists, like I said already, is recognized in the Constitution and also other policies. But unfortunately, not even 1/3 of those rights has been protected by the government, the operators of the system. The only savior Nigerian journalist has in the current time is perhaps the judiciary, that has sometimes risen to protect journalists from dictatorship and the tyranny of the executive arm of government by protecting the right of journalists, because the right of Nigerian journalists is at all not protected. Even a journalist has a right to be gainfully employed and have a right to receive adequate wages for his payment. But the question is, are they doing that? Like I told you in the beginning, a journalist's job does not subordinate to the government of the day. It does not subordinate to even the employer. You find that most of the medium of communication are owned by the government who employ. And as a journalist, you are also facing persecution and wrongful dismissal or termination of appointment just because of you trying to do your job saying the truth. How many journalists in the government-owned medium will be courageous enough to say that this is wrong or publish all right or say the right thing because of fear of that harassment take home? And that is totally wrong. That is why our society is where it is. How many journalists also in the private medium can also publish things or say things that is against the personal policy of their employer on television or radio? They will not say that because the guy will fire you, and the labor law is not there to even protect you. It's
actually near impossible, almost impossible.
In Nigeria in particular.
In Nigeria.
Yes. But you cannot say so of other countries that are civilized, and we should be working very hard to measure up with civilized countries. We should be comparing global best practices. We should be measuring every time with Pakistan or Iran and Iraq and all this Somalia or North Korea. Nigeria is sort of progressing. We are moving towards trying to compare our human rights with China. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be comparing our human rights with Europe and America. That's how we should be looking at it.
Okay, just a few minutes to go on this segment, but very quickly, where would you place the NUJ and regulatory bodies in all of this, since you said that the journalists' rights are not totally protected and there's still loopholes? So where would you place, what role would you say the Nigerian Union of Journalism and so many journalists and so many other bodies, what role would you say they've been playing so far in trying to protect the rights of journalists?
Yeah, I would personally commend the Nigerian journalists for coming up with the idea of NUJ. That the NUJ is still alive up to this time around is a commendation. How extent have they been able to protect the rights of journalists? It's a question, because the kind of activism that one will expect from NUJ is not there. And the kind of probing and questioning and demanding for the rights of journalists is not there. They have tried sometimes, sporadically, but there's no consistency in that. But one would want to see journalists in Nigeria having their rights protected, and also journalists in Nigeria be responsible in performing their duty. It's a two-way thing. Every right comes with responsibility, because a situation where you have journalists who will accept gifts, brown envelope or white envelope, that will color now what they are reporting. It's not good for journalism. It's not good for the image of journalists. And this is what the system is taking advantage of, because they know that you're not paid, you're not well paid.
So how can one differentiate brown envelope and appreciation for a job well done from wherever you go to cover a report?
So long as it doesn't color your view. So long as you say the truth.
Okay,
so long as you can take the envelope and say the truth. After all, you are the same people that tell people, go and take the money and vote your conscience.
Okay.
Take the envelope for brown or white, black or red, and say your conscience. Be courageous and bold.
Okay, so you have just probably from what you have said, it just shows that even the journalists themselves can infringe on their own rights if they don't carry out their duties properly. Yes, that's been an interesting one, and just as time will not permit us to delve into other areas, but I was going to ask you how a journalist can infringe on his or her own rights. And you rightly mentioned that if you're not properly carrying out your duties accordingly as a journalist, then you might as well not be doing what you should as a journalist. Thank you very much for being part of the Media Review segment. My guest has been Clem Aguyi, and our topic has been rights and privileges of the Nigerian journalist. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Eunice, for having me.
Thanks for joining us once again.
Well, it's time to go. Once again, compliments of the season. Eunice?
Yeah, same here. Compliments of the season. And just as you have celebrated Christmas and looking forward to the new year, we hope that the Lord will take us through and even beyond. Join us again same time next week. Bye.
And incidentally, this episode of Inside is the last for 2017. See you in 2018, January, with the first episode of Inside. On behalf of all of us, we wish you once again compliments of the season and a new year in advance.